Okay, everybody, welcome back to Ending the Stigma, a path to recovery with Scott H. Silverman. How are you, Scott? I'm Fredd Carroll, by the way. But how are you, Scott?
I'm glad I'm glad you introduced yourself, Fred, because I was thinking you sure look like Bob today.
Well, I did shave. I shaved my
That-
goatee off.
oh,
So
that's right. You did. Thanks for no. You look thinner. I couldn't understand. Yeah, I got a haircut, and everyone, oh, you're losing weight, and nope, a
I got a
haircut.
hair. I got a haircut today too. It's the best part about having a daughter in the business. I got to go to this beautiful salon, and every girl is beautiful in there, and they're so sweet and nice. And then I get to walk out without paying. Doesn't cost me a dime. It's a beautiful thing. Let her
Yeah,
cut my hair.
yeah, kind of a mixed message there, Fred. But thank you for clarifying it.
Well, I
Anyway,
just I always talk about. I find it so fascinating that all the girls are so pretty there. It's just one of them things, and it fascinates me. Puts my head on a swivel, and most of them are in their 40s and stuff. But they're, you know, what are you gonna do? This is the life I lead. So, what's going on in your world there, Scotty?
well, I think I told you my wife was out of town for a few days, so got to know the dogs differently, and we have not a young 2-year-old female. It's pretty funny because when she wants to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, she'll scratch the bed and wake up my wife. Well, I don't get up for that kind of stuff just because I'm already up for my own stuff a couple times a night. So she's coming back, missed her a lot this week, and she'll be back tonight, picking her up in a couple hours. That's why we're doing the show at a different time. Thank you, Fred. And looking forward to having her here. And we're going to hopefully sometime this weekend or maybe next week try our new bikes out together, some pedal assist bikes, which are good for seniors. That way you got a little battery, it's electric, it helps you move along. And I had pizza for lunch yesterday and I had pizza for dinner last night. So
Are you a cook at all? Do you cook?
I cook all the meals. Yeah, my wife does not cook. She cooks twice a year.
Really?
Once during the Jewish holidays and once during Passover, brisket. Same thing, but twice a year.
Yeah. What are you good at? What kind of cooking do you do?
Oh, I do a variety of different things: pasta sauces, soups, stir fries, excellent barbecue, chicken, vegetables, corn, steak, hamburgers, hot dogs, salads. I make good salads. I'm great at breakfast: hash browns, sausage, bacon.
And that's mostly, did that just adapt because you work from home and she works outside the house? Did that just become a natural thing? Or was it
No,
always like that?
she just never friggin' knew how to cook.
Really? Even when the kids were young, you were the
No,
cook?
I've always no, I'm the cook.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
thing.
I hear the resentment in my tone.
Well, how are the girls? How are your daughters? Are they good cooks?
No,
No?
my youngest, I think she can make salads and do stuff. My other one, they've learned to craft things on their own, but they really weren't paying attention per se when I was doing it. But the oldest does pretty well. They do pretty well. They eat healthier than we do. But at the end of the day, I literally have probably cooked 95% of our meals in our 38 years together. So, and I don't mind doing it. She's the cleaner, I'm the cook. So it works out really well. And periodically she'll put a salad together and go, "How was dinner?" I go, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, I made a salad." It's like, are you kidding? It was great.
So you do the cooking and she
Yeah.
does the dishes and stuff? She does all the cleanup of the cooking?
Yeah.
That's a dream come true right there. That's the worst part about cooking is the cleaning,
Yeah. Well,
I think.
I throw stuff on the floor. We have an arrangement. She never says you're a pig. I know she thinks it, but doesn't say it out loud.
It's perfect.
And she handles that. And then she'll get up and feed the dogs. My routine is I'll make whatever. She does morning coffee. So we have a great partnership that way. And it works out really well. Neither one of us resents the other, obviously, because I do some of the heavy lifting with the cooking, and she does the heavy lifting getting the dishes in the dishwasher.
Well, great. So what else have you done this week? Have you been working with the addiction awareness stuff and all that all week long?
Was that a test question?
Yeah. I want to know if you've been leaving the house, if you're
Oh, well, today was SOAP, our Society of Addiction Professionals. We meet once a month. We had a great speaker today. Jody Barber is her name. She lost a son to an overdose a few years ago. and she spoke to our group today. We have about 20 people. Next week, the 31st, is International Overdose Day, and I've got hopefully a couple opportunities. I did an interview yesterday on Fox 2 News in Detroit, and the common question that's coming up with everybody right now is, has it gotten worse during COVID? Has it gotten worse during quarantine? And the answer is absolutely yes, it has. And so busy with my team at Confidential. We're getting some client calls now. I think, as summer kind of transitions and, school just started, it seems like, across the country. But I work, I'm basically still working from home because of COVID. I was supposed to be at a big event this week with the district attorney and about 150 other people. I've said, I'm sorry, I just can't go. So I'm still very guarded about where I go, what time I go. And if I have to go to the grocery store, which everyone does, I go at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, minimum crowds, get in, get out, wear my mask. And, I'm at an age that I just don't, and I've been vaccinated and I've done what I'm supposed to do. And I just don't want to get sick. I just, and the idea of getting sick and not being able to get to the proper, appropriate medical care right now, because, ICU beds are filling up everywhere across the country. I don't want to risk that. And it's interesting. I've taken a couple of days, Fred, and I've not been watching the news. Usually I'll keep a TV on in the background with, those subtitles going through. I've not been doing that. And actually I feel a lot better.
Well, I think that's a common for anybody. I think everybody would feel better but unfortunately that's an addiction. There is an addiction to the news, because I have friends that I say, well, you have to turn the channel, turn the news off. You're starting to worry about things that are out of your control, one thing. And two, it's all you talk about. It becomes a cycle, and they're like, well, I have to watch the news. Why do you have to? You could actually just get the headline or pick and choose where you're going to read your news. But I don't watch any. I have no local news. In the morning, I turn it on just for the weather, the traffic report, the basic local news. And then I get to Good Morning America usually and turn it off as soon as it, and those are only on off days because I sleep during the day because I'm a vampire.
Who was it? I think when CNN first started, growing I think they were one of the first ones. What was that? Ted Turner's first major 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week network of news, just news. They used to talk about how it was created for Alzheimer's patients because they repeat everything every 15 minutes. So, you're right about you start watching it. And then what happens is you kind of feel like you need that update every 15 minutes. And you really don't, because unless it's and everything says breaking news now, all of them, breaking news, we're just updating you from 15 minutes ago, but it's breaking. And that to me is annoying, because now everyone says it almost like, it's all breaking news. We actually had a airplane here. Was it yesterday? Yesterday, crash land on a freeway. Everyone survived, which is kind of unusual. They got lucky, but it jacked up traffic over near Del Mar, which is where the racetrack is. Season's over though. I think it is. And anyway, so that was breaking news here in San Diego.
So what's it like at the airport where you have to pick your wife up? Do you just wait outside for her? Can you go in, or you?
You can go to a certain point, but you need a boarding pass to go past a certain. But that's been like that. That's been like that since 9/11. First happened.
Yeah, I tried to explain to my daughter how common it was to go watch a friend go, and you would literally watch their flight take off.
Yeah.
You would
or be there when they got off the off ramp going through the little tunnel. You'd be there to give them a big hug and hold up the whole line and everything. That was or banners and everything.
Yeah.
Now you don't do that anymore. I wait at the curb. I don't even get out of the car and help with the suitcase anymore, because we want to get out of that traffic.
Yeah, it's got to be crazy. It's always crazy around an airport. So I figured we're only going to do about a half hour today because you're busy and I'm busy. I actually have a new book coming out Friday, I think, or Tuesday. Comes out Tuesday. It's got to be done by Friday. So I have a lot of work to do setting it up and stuff. So that comes out. People could actually get it. It's actually this one right here. It's called The Summer of '87. and it's just an anthology that me and seven other authors all chose a song from the summer of 1987, a rock song, and we each write a story about it inspired by that song. So you could
Did you
either,
read it? Didn't you put together a similar book recently with a similar kind of
yeah, but that
platform?
was the 70s. That was the
Okay.
70s 8 track where 8 people took 8 songs from the 70s. This one's a little more specific. It was summer of 87 the song had to come out between.
What's the name of that? There's a record company that puts together on a CD, on a CD, you know, best hits 74,
Yeah,
46, you know.
that's what it's like.
Yeah.
And but they do well. I like them because I'm inspired by music a lot in my life. But the dogs are talking. They missed their mama. That must be the mailman coming. So the book itself, it has an inspiration to me, and I chose a Guns N' Roses song and wrote a song about it and stuff. I wrote a book, not a song. I don't write songs. But I think you're muted, by the way. Are you? Oh,
Yeah, I did
okay.
that so the dogs wouldn't bother you. But you know, I like this concept, you know, where you're picking a year and you take a song and then you write about it, because I think that series that, you know, the best of in each year. I remember when it first came out. I think I even have 1, 2, 3, and 4, the compilations that they would do, because I think that concept's really cool. Kind of like that reminds me of the Book for Dummies, or you know, other series of books
Right.
where you
There
know
really
you
are no rules either. And when I say it, it's such a loose thing. Just for instance, I'm writing about a gun from the Guns N' Roses perspective when
right.
they released Appetite for Destruction. But I'm really writing about a moment in my true life that happened on that. I remember July 21st, 1987. And I call it a semi fictional, you know, it's my life mixed in with some fictional add-ins to make it interesting, quite honestly. But it's just one of them things, and I've been dealing with that for a while. But some people literally take the lyrics of a song and create a story out of the lyrics, and so there's no rules to it. If there were, it would be a little different. And we have another one coming. These are all I'm publishing these. This is through my publishing company. So I gather all these authors. And the next one, I think, is January or February. I don't even know. And it's the 91 Grunge, where you have to choose a song from 3 specific albums that from Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and Nirvana. So you have to choose a song off of that album. But so that comes out sometime next week. You could actually buy it now. Go to Amazon. You could type in summer of 87 and you'll find it, or find me on social media. You'll see it all over. So I ran across a few articles. One of them was about Doc Gooden, who was the famous pitcher from the New York Mets at the time, and with Darryl Strawberry and his drug issues and stuff like that. So he was talking about in his, I believe it was his, ESPN 30 for 30, which are great little 30-minute biographies of things. And it was called Once Upon a Time in Queens. And it was about the 1986 Mets. And he says, this is his quote: I remember when Len Bias died. You see that, and for like the first 4 or 5 hours, it hits you. Wow, that could have been me, Gooden says in the final episode of the 4-part series. But then the sickest part about it, you go to your dealer and you say, give me that Len Bias stuff. That's what they called it, the Len Bias stuff. And he said, that's sick, but that's where I was at that time. I would say, hey, I want the Len Bias stuff, meaning in street terms, I want the strongest stuff you have. That's how crazy my brain was at that time. And can you imagine? Give me the Len Bias stuff. You're going to die. Your family and friends are left. And my dad saying my son died of a drug overdose. So I wanted to talk to you about, I think it's probably a common thing in with addiction is people seek. I've heard it before, like where heroin people have died of heroin overdoses, and then people want that heroin. they're like, wow, if it killed him, it must be awesome. That
Yeah.
weird in between, and it's got to be
Like that was a good batch. Where can I find that batch? Or that was a good year. Where do I find that bottle? No, it's amazing. And when I hear from families who lose a young child, young meaning 19, 20, 21, 22, and then they go into the story about how their best friend just passed away, and it was the same medication or the same counterfeit medication cut with something else that caused the child to overdose and die. What drives that kind of mindset? I mean, as a person who used to want to get as high as I could, I would polydrug, meaning I would move from one drug to another. But in those days, you got high, you didn't die. It was an overdose was very rare. And nowadays we're seeing overdoses being more common than, almost anything going on right now. And it's usually because it's cut with something that has a potency that can kill the consumer. And it's sought after. It's on the black market. It's counterfeit. It's made by people who, don't really care if they're the consumer or the end user expires from taking it. So there's no quality assurance. And it's horrible. That's the 240 people dying every day in our country. A lot of it's counterfeit medication. Counterfeit meaning someone thinks they're taking a Xanax because they need the Xanax, but it's cut with fentanyl and they're overdosing and dying. And a lot of times people who are stressed or suffering from depression or anxiety or sleep deprivation are on some other prescribed medication. And when you mix those two, it can cause the heart to stop beating. I mean, that's what happened to Whitney Houston. And that, I think that's a part of what happened with Michael Jackson. And, I think we were talking about Prince earlier. Some of these situations are a combination of things because science doesn't know. If you're taking Lexapro and Xanax, and then you put cocaine or alcohol in your body, and if any of those are cut with fentanyl, it's a one-way ticket. You're not coming back.
So that kind of brings me into this, which I mentioned to you before we went live, but didn't describe to you. So in Vancouver I want to say the date is August 31st.
Okay.
They are giving away free heroin, cocaine, and meth will be handed out in Vancouver this month. So I want to tell you, you were very curious over where they're going with this. So this is the founders of the Drug User Liberation, the VIA, about an upcoming event. And so
did you freeze up, Fred, or did I?
No, why you don't see me? I see you fine. You hear me fine? Well, I'll keep going. I could hear you. So this is after watching multiple loved ones die, a Vancouver-based safe supply advocacy group says policymakers need to act now to save lives. Can you hear me, Scott, or no? You having an issue? Looks like you froze up. Scott's frozen, but that's okay. I could continue for a little while, for a few minutes. But Scott, you there? Nope. Scott left us. Imagine that. Scott is gone. But yeah, so this Vancouver place, they basically take the drugs and make sure it's clean. And once it's cleaned, they hand them out to the users. And their theory is they have removed it's free of fentanyl analogs. And you there, Scott?
I am. Did I lose you? Did you freeze up? Was that me? I had to reboot.
No, that was on your end. All on your end. I know you just put in that new hub.
Yeah. Anyway, I missed when you started talking.
I was just saying that this company, this advocacy program, the Safe Supply Advocacy Group, believes that the regime of prohibition is to blame, not the drugs themselves. So they are going to hand out heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamines outside the Vancouver Police Department for awareness to spark a discussion. So what they do is they take the drug and they send it to a lab, the FTIR spectrometry, and make sure that it's free of fentanyl analogs, benzos, and other harmful I never seen this word before, but adulterants. And they say
by the way, August 31st is International Overdose Day.
that's why they do it. That's why they're doing
basically what they're going to do is they're going to give people chemically guarded illicit substances so they don't end up overdosing, but they still can get high.
Right. And use it as a platform. And
right.
So where do you see, you locked up again.
I'm here.
There you are. Does this sound like anything that has any legs where it could work, or does it make any sense it makes a little sense to me where,
I think what they're trying to do, it's kind of like with the old needle exchange program where they gave people clean needles so they wouldn't get other issues. And, that was very controversial. And the thing is this, if people are going to do what they're going to do and you can create a safer portal for them, that's one thing. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, bringing your street drugs to a laboratory to get tested before you use them. And I just think there's a form of enabling going on there. But I understand that if a community has got a huge increase in overdoses, and it's because the medication people are getting from the street is counterfeit and it's causing a death rate way off the charts, it is a way of potentially, it's like a harm reduction is really what it is. It's a form of harm reduction. I think I mentioned to you a couple of shows ago that we had a homeless guy here in San Diego, methamphetamine addict, self-admitted, public about it, was testing his methamphetamine with fentanyl strips to make sure there was no fentanyl in it because he didn't want to die of an overdose doing his drug of choice, which historically never had fentanyl in it. But people are putting fentanyl in everything because it's so addictive and it's so powerful. So people get higher and they get addicted to it quicker, which means they're going to be a repeat customer sooner. And that, to me, that's my competition. That's when I, as a, substance use disorder treatment provider and interventionist, that's my competition. That's who I'm fighting against right now, are people who are making drugs and putting poison in it. And, just had a big meeting this morning with 20 people. What do we do? How do we communicate with our kids to be very careful not to buy anything off of someone we don't know? Even if we do know them, not to buy it, because you never know what you're getting right now. And what they're trying in Canada, I hope it doesn't bring a consumer that was not in line to get illicit substances the day before, or the week before. And it'll be interesting to see, how the community at large and the global community reacts to that. There's a lot of people that believe, I think it's the Portugal model where, and I think they do it in Sweden, where every drug is legal. But on the other hand, in those countries, when they do that, they also say, if anybody wants treatment, anybody, you walk in today, you will get a bed, you will get a seat in a room, you will find access to treatment. And I like that balance. I mean, I think that's a risky way to do it, but supposedly, it takes a couple years because any society is going to have to adjust to that kind of change. But so far, the preliminary outcomes have been, it's been successful. Because when it kind of takes that challenge out of, I want the risk factor. Well, there's no more risk. It's all legal. You don't have, it's not illegal. I mean, I've been in places like Amsterdam where technically everything used to be legal when it was the heroin capital of the world. And I bought and sold hash while I was there and paid for half my trip. But, even their customs have changed now because of what's happened in the world.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the Sweden stuff and the Portugal stuff. It just sounds like it's a chance, it has a chance for success. And I'm sure there's negatives to it that we're not even thinking of, but
right.
I think that's with anything. And the same thing with this thing we're talking about. It sounds great that the drug addict will be able to, they're going to get the drug anyway. I understand that. Whether it has the fentanyl in it or not, they don't know. But if you could remove the fentanyl form and then it's becoming enabling, now you're telling the drug addict, here's a good drug for you that's clean and do it. But then when it's a clean drug, is that make it on equal par with marijuana, which is considered a cleaner drug? You still get high, but it's not killing you. And it has a lot of ways to fall off, but I get it. I guess you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I guess for overdose day, it makes sense.
It's one of those things. We're such a pill-seeking society, the U.S. So that's a major issue in its own right. And people, by the way, are dying from marijuana. The percentage of THC in marijuana today, in August of 2021, is almost 97% pure, meaning the toxicity of the THC, or from the drug consumer's perspective, the quality of marijuana is so high, and the addiction piece of it is so high. Now, there are people who can consume it, take edibles, and they get happy and they're fine. And there are people medically that need it and should be able to get it. But there are those who are predisposed that, unfortunately, they'll take advantage of it. And they're reporting to hospitals now with people coming in, vomiting and screaming. It's called scromiting, I think it is, scromiting. Here in San Diego, one of the medical emergency doctors created a word, scromiting, screaming and vomiting. And you can actually die from that. So, and we're hearing stories about kids. Colorado had it first, flying off of buildings, because they thought they could fly, meaning a casual user is a casual user. I mean, I like to think of myself as a casual user, but in today's world, if I was taking the drugs that are out there today, I probably would have died just because I wasn't a casual user. So it'll be interesting to see. I would not deny a country doing that. I said, go for it, but be prepared. Because here's the thing that's cool, Fred, if you think about it, they'll have people coming in who may want to get their drugs checked, which gives them an opportunity to potentially introduce somebody to potential help, support, and treatment. So if they do it that way, then you've got yourself a win-win-win.
Yeah, kind of like, here's your heroin, but also can we take 5 minutes to talk to you about this? Because here's a way to get off heroin and maybe it brings on future studies. But I'm all for it too. You got to try everything at this point. Try everything. But the last thing I wanted to talk about was there's a new biography coming out for Prince, and you had mentioned it before that we talked about it. And it just goes into the details of his beginning all the way to where he died. But it does have a chapter on his prescription pill issues. And it seems they've nailed it down to he was fine. He was just he was never a pot smoker and stuff. He was very square, they said, a very square guy. He would be playing his guitar. That was his addiction, was his guitar and writing and staying up and writing. That's when later on in life he discovered drugs could help him stay awake. That was the problem. But earlier in his career, it was his bandmates would go outside and smoke a joint. And they'd come in high and he'd make a comment like, your eyes are all red and you smell bad and all this. And they'd be like, you're such a square, Prince. You're a square. And he did get into some hallucinogens. He liked hallucinogens, but they were always done at his home and stuff like that, mushrooms and stuff like that. And that probably was more for his entertainment. But the prescription pill problem came during he was training for the tour he was upcoming this several years ago. And he was going to perform in a bathtub that came down on 2 chains and he'd be playing his guitar. Well, they were doing the first test run of it. And unfortunately the porcelain cracked and the whole thing came crashing down on the stage from about 10 to 15 feet, they said, with him in it. And it hurt his back. And then he hurt his knee. Then he hurt his foot. Then, because he was favoring the back, did ruin the knee. Then he found a doctor that gave him fentanyl as a painkiller. The problem is when you're financially in the situation he is, it's easy to get more fentanyl. It's easy to find a doctor to prescribe it to you and get it, and then he's abusing it. And that's where it all stemmed from. And I think we had spoken that it's very common. That's the common way to get hooked on, these drugs. Most heroin.
Well, supposedly, studies show that 70% of the heroin users started or their addiction erupted from prescription medicine, historically Oxycontin for pain, or something like fentanyl is pretty unusual. You don't get fentanyl for pain from a hospital unless it's really unique, and it's usually administered in the hospital. And if I'm not mistaken, fentanyl originally was created to deal with cancer patients who had a tremendous amount of pain and nothing else worked for. So it was created for a real specific arena, and now it's just become as common as crack cocaine was back in the 80s. And it's a problem because there's no quality assurance, and a small amount can kill you. And we're seeing that right now. So yeah, it happens. And I think it's important. People just have to be informed. You're going to put something in your body. It's funny. We won't eat gluten. We won't eat high fat food. Well, I do. And we choose not to, mess with the ecosystem. And we try to minimize our carbon footprint. We try to recycle materials. Well, that logic, I think we need to bring to making choices about putting poison in our body that could kill us. And I'm not talking about people who want to party and drink beer and have a good time. By all means. But most people are smart about it. They don't get behind the wheel of a car, but people still do. I mean, the DUIs in our country are still up. The impaired driving deaths are still up. Why? With all the information we have. When you can take it's harder now with Uber, but still, or Lyft because it's more expensive and less drivers because of COVID. But still, why are we still seeing this morbidity rate?
They don't have the same excuse we had, which was still a bad excuse. You just don't drive. Right. You just don't drive when you're drunk. You can't drink and drive. And we know that. I did before we're going to end in a minute, but I did. I remember when a friend of mine was in Germany, and he said they have the law perfectly set. Any amount of alcohol in your system behind the wheel is drunk driving, which means, if you're going to a bar to have one beer, take a cab, have a sober driver, because if you just get pulled over it could be 0.1, you're drunk driving. And that might be the answer to it.
And here in the U.S., they want to raise it from 0.8 to 1.3 or something so they don't have to put as many people in jail.
Yeah, well, that becomes a problem, too, because they become repeat offenders. It's the same people sometimes doing this. And I know from experience that, not my own, but living it, that I had a person in my life who was arrested so many times for her drug issue or alcohol issue that they just stopped arresting her because she had no money. So she could never get herself out. She was just going to jail and sitting there. And as long as, and it cost the taxpayers money, eventually they just pulled her over, made her park her car, and would give her a ride home or get her a taxi instead of arrest her but that's enabling. That becomes enabling. But
yeah, that must have been a pretty intimately small community, because you try that in California, they'd arrest the people that let her go.
Right. It's in this town, and we're only a town of about 18,000 people. So
got it.
It's very small, but still, that's just an example of, is kind of similar to what we were discussing with the Narcan, how somebody that works on the ambulance, once they saved you 3 times, the 4th time, they're not rushing, to save you. And they're kind of like, well, geez, this guy's just taking advantage of us now at this point. But
I agree.
But great discussion, I think. And I'm glad your wife is coming back home, because I know you miss her, because that's who you are. So let's remind people of your phone number and stuff like that. So that is anybody out there that is having an issue or wants to discuss possible ways to save their lives or a loved one's lives. You can call Scott or text Scott at 619-993-2738. He would much rather talk to you on the phone than talk to you at the funeral. So make sure you reach out to him. He usually gets back to you within 24 hours, I would say. Scott, I'm going to test them.
If not sooner. You bet.
I'm going to test you. I'm going to see if I can get some fake phone numbers and hit you up. See how
I like. Yeah, look, I've told you many times, Fred. When I see an unfamiliar number, I grab it, even when it says potential spam, because I have that now. I pick it up because it's usually somebody who's going to try to work me, and I like that idea. So they just say, oh, your this account is really a problem. It's going to cost you $19.95 a month to secure it. And I go, really? Can I talk to your supervisor, please?
Yeah, that's how it is. But okay, end the show. You know how you end it. What do you say?
Well, if nobody has told you they love you today, we love you.
We love you. So that's going to be it for Ending the Stigma. Thank you for joining us. It'll be in replay all week long. I'll make sure it gets out there. That's been working well for us. And have a great day. Stay safe, stay sober, and enjoy your life. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye, Scott.
Take care, buddy. See you, everyone.